there's a great Zen story about a young man who comes to a master and says, "Master, teach me." And the master says to him, "Well, son, sit down because I really can't teach you anything." He says, "Why not?" And he says, "Would you like some tea?" And of course the young man said, "Sure." So he puts a cup of tea down in front of him and he starts to pour the tea in the tea, and he just keeps pouring the tea into the cup until it runs over. And the boy goes, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, you're like that cup." He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you're full of knowledge. You're full of what you know, so there's nothing I can give you because you already know what you know and you're looking to confirm it." And you know, for those of you that are already successful, in some ways, you're a little bit at a disadvantage because you already know what you've been through. But what if there's an Einstein out here who decides to question the way that it was in search of and maybe on the precipice of an unprecedented future for this organization? And in talking to Casey tonight, my sense is that he or she or them or they are here. Can you feel it in the air? There's a sense of anticipation. But anticipation for what? The past reinventing itself again, or the future that's never been? And participation is what's going to take to discover what it's going to open up that future. So participation has a lot to do with your purpose. What are you here for? What value will you take responsibility for having turn out? Did you notice people aren't used to having that question asked? We have a tendency to just go on automatic and run around and do what we normally do, thinking that's going to bring us what we hope for. And I would say, I know in my own life that is problematic. Attitude equals participation. How many of you have ever heard this quote? Charles Swindoll. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts, more important than the past, education, money, circumstances, failure, more important than successes, more important than what people think, say, or do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It'll make or break a company, a family, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we do have, and that is our attitude. And I'm convinced that life is 10% of what happens to me and 90% of how much I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitude. I'm asking you to consider, in all that you already know in that full cup that we naturally carry, that there's more to learn about what you're already good at. In fact, the biggest challenge to excellence is being good at something, because to move from good to great requires your willingness to rethink everything you've done that got you to be good. In fact, the very thing that got you to where you are might be the very thing that stops you from going where you say you want to be. Think about it. What you've done thus far, if you're maxed out, how many of you feel like, wow, man, I can't do another thing. I'm going so far, so fast, I can't get another thing on the table. If you're successful, that's just a sign that there's something to rethink. I run 2 organizations. I've been in this conversation. That's why I'm sharing it with you. And I was the CEO of both, and I just got a CEO for the second organization. And he's doing things newly, differently than I did. But I like to say newly because I'm not the standard. His future is the standard. So I don't want to hear about how I did things. And I don't want to talk about how I did things. I want to talk about what's new. How do we have that work? And there were things I did. I loved running my organization. Now I'm learning to love what it takes to have somebody else run the organization. It's a different set of skills than it was to run it. See, you ever heard of an unconscious competent? An unconscious competent naturally goes about what they do well. Because you're a great player doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach, because what makes a great coach is he's clear about what makes a great player. What makes a great player is he plays. Very distinct. Great players have to learn what it was that made him great. Michael Jordan had a coach because he can't see himself play. That coach, I guarantee you, was never as good as Michael Jordan playing the sport, but I guarantee you he's a better coach than Michael is. For Michael. Because he is clear about the distinctions of what it is to be great, and he's watching Michael, helping him redefine those distinctions. And those things happen in your attitude. That starts in your attitude. Are you willing to learn?